The church was packed. 300 guests sat in polished pews, their whispers creating a symphony of anticipation. White roses lined every surface, their fragrance almost suffocating in its intensity. I stood in the bridal suite, staring at my reflection in the full-length mirror, wondering if the woman looking back at me was real or just a carefully constructed illusion. My dress was perfect, ivory lace with delicate beading that caught the light with every breath I took. My mother had cried when she first saw me in it. My bridesmaids had gasped. But now, standing here alone, I felt like a fraud dressed up in someone else's dream. 5 minutes, Miss Carter, the wedding coordinator chirped from the doorway, her clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. I nodded, not trusting my voice. My hands trembled as I adjusted my veil for the 1,000th time. Where was Marcus? He should have been at the church already, waiting at the altar with his groomsmen. But his best man had just texted me, "We can't find him. He's not answering his phone." The first flutter of panic stirred in my chest. Emma! My maid of honor, Jennifer, poked her head through the door. Her smile was tight, forced. "They're asking if we should start the processional music. Has anyone heard from Marcus?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. Jennifer's eyes darted away. That's when I knew. That's when the first crack appeared in the perfect day I'd been planning for 18 months. "Jen, what's happening?" She stepped fully into the room and closed the door behind her. Her face had gone pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. "Emma, there's someone here to see you." "Marcus!" "No." She hesitated. "It's Mr. Ashford. From your office. Alexander Ashford. My boss. The CEO of Ashford Technologies, the man I'd worked for as his executive assistant for the past 3 years." What was he doing here? I hadn't even invited him. Marcus had insisted we keep the wedding intimate, which meant his family and friends only. My professional life wasn't supposed to bleed into this day. "Send him away," I said, turning back to the mirror. "I can't deal with work right now. Emma, I think you should talk to him." Something in her tone made me look at her sharply. Jennifer's eyes were glistening with unshed tears. "What's going on?" Before she could answer, the door opened again, and Alexander Ashford walked in. He was dressed impeccably, as always. A charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my wedding dress, his dark hair perfectly styled, his steel blue eyes intense and focused. At 35, he was one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country, and he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd built an empire from nothing. "Mr. Ashford," I stammered, acutely aware that I was in a wedding dress, about to marry another man. "This isn't really a good time. Emma, I need you to listen to me carefully." His voice was low, controlled, but there was an urgency beneath it that I'd never heard before. "Marcus isn't coming." The words hit me like a physical blow. The room tilted, and I reached out to steady myself against the vanity table. What do you mean?" Alexander moved closer, and I noticed he was holding a tablet. "I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you deserve to know the truth before you walk down that aisle." He turned the tablet toward me. On the screen was a video, paused on a frame that showed Marcus, my fiancé, in what looked like a hotel room. He wasn't alone. A blonde woman was wrapped around him, her lips on his neck, his hands tangled in her hair. "No." The word escaped as barely a whisper. "Keep watching," Alexander said gently. He pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the room through the tablet speakers. "I can't believe she actually thinks I love her. Emma's just a stepping stone, babe. Once we're married, I'll have access to everything. Her inheritance, her family's connections. Give it a year, maybe 2. Then we'll file for divorce, and I'll take half of everything. Then you and I can finally be together." The blonde woman's laugh was cruel. "Poor Emma. She has no idea she's marrying a fortune hunter." I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning, my carefully constructed world crumbling around me like a sandcastle hit by a wave. I couldn't finish the sentence. "This was recorded last night," Alexander said quietly. "Marcus checked into the Ritz-Carlton under a false name. My security team discovered it this morning." "Your security team? Why were they investigating Marcus?" Alexander's jaw tightened. "Because I've had concerns about him for months. The way he pushed you to set a wedding date, so quickly. The way he kept asking questions about your family's estate, your investments. It didn't sit right with me. You had him investigated? Anger flared through my shock. You had no right. I had every right to protect my employee from a con artist. His voice was steel now, his CEO persona fully engaged. Emma, Marcus Hoffman, isn't even his real name. He's Marcus Holloway, and he's done this before, twice. 2 other wealthy women, 2 marriages, 2 divorces that left him significantly richer. I sank into the chair, my legs no longer able to support me. The white dress pooled around me like a shroud. The guests, I whispered. 300 people are out there waiting. Let me handle it. Alexander crouched down, so we were eye level, and for the first time, I saw something in his expression beyond professional concern. There was anger there, yes, but also something softer. Something protective. Emma, I know this is devastating. I know you're hurting. But you need to make a decision right now. You can either walk out there and announce that the wedding is canceled, face all those people, deal with the questions and the pity, or... He reached out and took my hand. His touch was warm, solid, real in a moment when everything else felt like it was dissolving. Or you trust me. Let me get you out of here. Let me handle the fallout. Let me protect you the way I should have been protecting you all along. I stared at our joined hands. Alexander Ashford was my boss, nothing more. We had a professional relationship built on mutual respect and efficiency. He was brilliant, demanding, and completely dedicated to his work. I'd never seen him be remotely personal with anyone at the office. But now, looking into his eyes, I saw something that took my breath away. Not pity, not sympathy, but a fierce determination that went far beyond employer concern. Why? I asked. Why do you care this much? His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, a gesture so intimate it sent shivers up my spine. Because for 3 years, I've watched you be brilliant, dedicated, and completely blind to your own worth. I've watched you make my life easier, my company better, and I've kept my distance because you were engaged to someone else. But I'll be damned if I let you throw yourself away on a man who sees you as nothing more than a meal ticket. The sound of organ music started in the church. The processional was beginning. In minutes, they'd be expecting me to walk down that aisle. I can't just disappear, I said, panic rising again. People will talk. My parents. Your parents will understand. And yes, people will talk. But better they talk about a canceled wedding than watch you marry a man who planned to destroy you. He stood and held out his hand. Emma Carter, for once in your life, stop being the good girl who does what everyone expects. Stop being the perfect daughter, the perfect employee, the perfect bride. Trust me. Come with me. Now. I looked at his outstretched hand. This was insane. Alexander Ashford was my boss. This was my wedding day. There were 300 people waiting. My parents had spent a fortune. The honeymoon was booked. My whole life was planned out in neat, orderly steps. And it was all based on a lie. The organ music swelled. I could hear the guests standing, preparing for my entrance. I took Alexander's hand and stood. What do we do? A small smile curved his lips, the first real smile I'd ever seen from him. There's a car waiting at the back entrance. Jennifer will make the announcement. Your parents will meet us at my penthouse. And you, he squeezed my hand, you're going to let me show you what it's like when someone actually values you. This is crazy, I breathed. Completely. He was already leading me toward the back door. But sometimes crazy is exactly what you need. We slipped through the kitchen area of the church reception hall. Staff members gaped at us, the bride in full regalia being led away by a man in a suit who definitely wasn't the groom. But Alexander moved with such confidence, such authority, that no one dared question us. Behind us, I heard Jennifer's voice over the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to make an announcement. Then we were out the door, and I was being helped into the back of a sleek black Mercedes. Alexander slid in beside me, and the car pulled away from the curb before I could second-guess myself. I looked down at my wedding dress, at the bouquet I dropped somewhere in my escape, at the future I just walked away from. What have I done? I whispered. Alexander reached over and took my hand again. You've given yourself a second chance. Now we just have to figure out what you want to do with it. As the church disappeared behind us, I realized I had no idea what came next. No plan, no structure, no carefully ordered steps. And for the first time in my life, that didn't terrify me. It felt like freedom. Chapter 2. Alexander's penthouse was everything I expected and nothing I was prepared for. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Minimalist furniture created clean lines and open spaces, and somehow, despite being 50 stories up, it felt more grounded than anywhere I'd been in months. "The guest room is through there," Alexander said, gesturing to a hallway. "I've had some clothes brought in for you." "Your size, I hope," I asked Jennifer. I stood in the middle of his living room, still in my wedding dress, feeling like an actress who'd wandered onto the wrong stage. "You planned this. You knew I'd leave with you." "I hoped you would." He shrugged off his suit jacket and loosened his tie. "But I wasn't certain until you took my hand. Emma, you're the most stubborn person I know. If you hadn't wanted to leave, nothing I said would have convinced you." "My parents are on their way. I spoke with your father while we were in the car. He's furious, but not at you." Once I explained about Marcus's history, he understood. I sank onto one of the pristine white sofas, the dress creating a mountain of fabric around me. I feel like an idiot. How did I not see it? How did I miss all the signs? Alexander sat across from me, elbows on his knees, his blue eyes intense. "Because you're not cynical. You believe people when they say they love you. That's not a weakness, Emma. That's one of your greatest strengths." "It doesn't feel like a strength right now." He was quiet for a moment, then stood and walked to the bar. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid, whiskey, probably older than I was, and brought one to me. "I'm not much of a drinker," I protested. "Today you make an exception." I took a sip. The whiskey burned going down, but the warmth that followed was oddly comforting. "Can I ask you something?" I said after a moment. "And I want the truth. Always. Why did you really investigate Marcus?" "Because I've worked for you for 3 years, and you've never once gotten involved in my personal life." Alexander sat back down, his own glass cradled in his hands. He stared into the amber liquid, as if it might hold the answers he was looking for. "6 months ago, Marcus came to my office," he finally said. "He wanted investment advice. Said he was planning to propose to you and wanted to make sure he could provide properly for his future wife." The whole thing felt off. Too polished. Too rehearsed. "So you had him investigated based on a feeling?" "Based on the fact that the numbers he gave me didn't add up. He claimed to be a senior investment analyst at Morrison & Burke, making a specific salary. But when I checked with contacts at Morrison & Burke, they'd never heard of him. That's when I hired a private investigator. I thought back to 6 months ago. That was when Marcus had proposed. A romantic dinner. A surprise engagement ring that I later learned he'd put on credit. I'd been so happy, so certain I'd found the one. The other women he married," I said slowly. "What happened to them? One lost her family's company in the divorce settlement. The other lost her inheritance. Both are still recovering financially and emotionally. I wasn't going to let you become number 3. The doorbell rang. Alexander rose to answer it, and moments later, my parents rushed in. My mother took one look at me in the wedding dress and burst into tears. My father, normally stoic and controlled, looked like he wanted to hit something. "Emma, sweetheart," my mother said, gathering me into her arms. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, Mom. We liked him," my father said gruffly. "He seemed like a good man. Stable. Reliable." He turned to Alexander. "You're certain about the evidence?" Alexander pulled out his tablet and showed my father the video. I watched my father's expression transform from shock to rage. "I'll destroy him," he said quietly. "I'll make sure he never cons another person again." "Already handled," Alexander replied. "I forwarded all the evidence to the authorities. Marcus Holloway will be facing fraud charges by tomorrow, and the 2 women he previously married are considering pressing charges as well." My father studied Alexander with new respect. "You did all this for my daughter?" "I did it because it was right." Alexander's gaze found mine across the room. "And because Emma deserves better than a man who saw her as a transaction." My mother helped me out of the wedding dress and into the clothes Alexander had provided, designer jeans that fit perfectly and a soft cashmere sweater. It felt strange to shed the wedding dress, like removing the last piece of a life I thought I was going to have. When I emerged from the guest room, my parents were preparing to leave. "Stay here tonight," my father said, kissing my forehead. "Alexander's right. The media will have a field day with this." Better to let the initial frenzy die down before you go home. I can go to Jennifer's. Emma! My mother took my hands. Let someone take care of you for once. You're always so independent, so self-sufficient. For tonight, just let yourself rest. After they left, the penthouse felt cavernous and quiet. Alexander had disappeared into what I assumed was his home office, giving me space. I wandered to the windows and looked out at the city lights. I canceled tomorrow's meetings, Alexander said from behind me. I hadn't heard him approach. I figured you could use a day without obligation. You didn't have to do that. Emma, you just walked away from your own wedding. You're allowed to take a day. I turned to face him. Why are you being so kind to me? He moved to stand beside me at the window, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. You asked me that before in the church. Do you remember what I said? You said you've watched me for 3 years, that you've kept your distance because I was engaged. That's the professional answer. He turned to look at me, and the intensity in his eyes made my breath catch. The personal answer is that I fell in love with you approximately 6 months into your employment, and I've been in exquisite agony ever since. The world stopped. The city disappeared. There was only Alexander, standing close enough to touch, telling me things I'd never dared to imagine. You what? I fell in love with the way you organize my chaos, the way you handle difficult clients with grace, the way you remember everyone's birthday and make sure they feel valued. I fell in love with your laugh, which I only hear when you think no one's listening. I fell in love with your intelligence, your work ethic, your unwavering integrity. He reached up and brushed a strand of hair from my face. And I've hated every single day that I had to watch you plan a wedding to someone else. Alexander, you don't have to say anything. I'm not telling you this to pressure you or to take advantage of your vulnerability. I'm telling you because you deserve to know that someone sees you, really sees you. Not your family's money, not your connections, not what you can do for them. Just you. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I didn't even know I was crying until I felt them fall. I thought Marcus saw me, I whispered. I thought he loved me. He saw what he wanted to see. And what he wanted was your bank account. Alexander's thumb gently wiped away my tears. Emma, I need you to understand something. What I'm offering you isn't a replacement relationship. It's not me trying to swoop in and be the hero. What I'm offering is time. Space. A chance for you to heal and figure out who you are without someone else's expectations hanging over you. And if I wanted more than that, I couldn't finish the sentence. Then I would be the luckiest man alive. His smile was soft, genuine. But not tonight. Not when you're raw and hurting. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. Until then, I'm just your friend. And your boss. Though perhaps we should discuss whether you want to continue working for me, given the circumstances. I thought about that. About going back to the office, sitting at the desk outside his office, pretending nothing had changed when everything had. I love my job, I said slowly. I love the work, the challenges, the feeling of being part of something bigger. But you're right, things have changed. I don't know if we can go back to the way things were. Then we won't go back. We'll move forward. Together or separately, whatever you decide. But Emma, he caught my hand. You're not losing your job over this. You're too valuable, too talented. If you want to stay, we'll figure out a new dynamic. If you want to leave, I'll write you a recommendation that will get you hired anywhere in the country. Your choice. Always your choice. The kindness in his voice, the genuine care in his eyes. It was almost too much to bear. I'd spent 18 months with a man who'd pretended to love me, and here was someone offering me complete autonomy with no strings attached. I don't know what I want, I admitted. Everything feels uncertain right now. That's okay. Uncertainty means possibility. It means you get to choose your own path instead of following someone else's plan. We stood there in silence, watching the city lights twinkle below. For the first time all day, I felt like I could breathe. Thank you, I finally said, for saving me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Thank you for trusting me enough to leave with me. He squeezed my hand gently. Now, I believe you've had the longest day of your life. The guest room is yours for as long as you need it. If you want company, I'll be up. If you want space, I'll understand. I should have chosen space. Should have retreated to the guest room and processed everything that had happened. Should have been sensible and cautious, and all the things I'd always been. Instead, I tightened my grip on his hand. "Stay," I said softly. "Just for a little while. I don't want to be alone." Alexander's smile could have lit up the entire city. "Then I'll stay." We moved to the sofa, and he put on quiet music, something classical and soothing. We didn't talk about Marcus or the wedding or what came next. Instead, he told me about his childhood, growing up poor in Detroit, building his first computer from scavenged parts, teaching himself to code in the public library. I told him about my family, about the pressure to be perfect, about how I'd chosen Marcus partly because he'd seemed safe, predictable, unlike the wildness and uncertainty that had scared me. "And now," Alexander asked, "does uncertainty still scare you?" I thought about that, about the day I'd had, about walking away from everything I'd planned. "Now," I said slowly, "I think maybe uncertainty is exactly what I need." His arm was around my shoulders, and I was leaning against him, feeling safe in a way I hadn't felt in months. Maybe years. "Emma, when you're ready to date again, and I'm not saying that has to be soon or with me or with anyone, promise me you'll look for someone who challenges you, who sees your strength and celebrates it rather than trying to dim it, who makes you feel powerful, not protected." I tilted my head to look up at him. "Like you do. Like you deserve." The kiss was soft, gentle, nothing like the passionate embraces I'd shared with Marcus. This felt different, like a promise, like the beginning of something real rather than the performance of something fake. When we broke apart, Alexander rested his forehead against mine. "Too soon?" he asked. "Probably." I smiled. "But also perfect. We should stop." "We should." Neither of us moved. "Emma, I need you to know I'm not Marcus. I'm not going to rush you or pressure you or expect anything from you. Whatever happens between us happens on your timeline at your pace. And if nothing happens, if you decide you want to be friends and colleagues and nothing more, I'll respect that." I believed him. That was the strange part. After everything I'd been through that day, I believed him completely. "What if I don't want to wait?" I whispered. "What if I'm tired of being careful and measured and doing everything the right way?" Then I'd say you've earned the right to be a little reckless. His eyes sparkled with mischief. "But I'd also say that you're in shock, you're hurting, and you might regret making big decisions right now. So you're the voice of reason now? One of us has to be. And you've had a hell of a day." He was right, of course. My emotions were all over the place. But as I sat there in his arms, I couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, the disaster of my almost wedding had led me exactly where I needed to be. Chapter 3. I woke up the next morning in Alexander's guest room, momentarily disoriented. Sunlight streamed through unfamiliar windows. The sheets were Egyptian cotton, ridiculously soft. And then I remembered, the wedding that wasn't, the escape, Alexander's confession. My phone was buzzing with notifications. I'd turned it off last night, but apparently someone had plugged it in while I slept. 53 missed calls, 127 text messages, 17 voicemails. I didn't look at any of them. Instead, I padded out of the guest room in the pajamas I'd found laid out for me. Silk, of course, probably cost more than my monthly rent. The smell of coffee drew me to the kitchen. Alexander was already up, dressed in jeans and a simple black t-shirt, looking unfairly handsome for someone who probably hadn't slept much. He was at the stove, cooking what appeared to be an elaborate breakfast. "You cook?" I asked, surprised. He glanced over his shoulder and smiled. "I lived alone for years before I could afford personal staff. Had to feed myself somehow. Coffee, please." He poured me a cup from an espresso machine that looked like it belonged in a 5-star restaurant. The coffee was perfect, strong, rich, exactly what I needed. "How did you sleep?" he asked, returning to the stove. "Better than I expected." "You?" "I've had worse nights." He plated what turned out to be eggs Benedict with smoked salmon and brought it to the counter. "Eat. You barely touched anything yesterday." I sat and took a bite. It was delicious, of course. "The media has the story," he said casually, pulling out his tablet. "I thought you should see it before you check your phone." The headline made me wince. Heiress Emma Carter left at the altar. CEO Alexander Ashford involved in dramatic exit. There were photos. Somehow they'd gotten photos of Alexander leading me to his car, of me in the wedding dress, looking shell-shocked. The articles speculated wildly about our relationship, about whether we'd been having an affair, about whether I'd left Marcus for Alexander. They make it sound so scandalous, I muttered. It is scandalous. Beautiful young woman escapes her own wedding with mysterious billionaire CEO. That's tabloid gold. He took a sip of his own coffee. But the truth will come out. The fraud charges against Marcus should be filed by this afternoon. Once people learn what he did, the narrative will shift. To what? Poor Emma, too stupid to see she was being conned. To brave Emma, who walked away when she learned the truth. He reached across the counter and covered my hand with his. You're not a victim here. You're a survivor. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at it, Jennifer calling for the 10th time. You should talk to her, Alexander said. She's worried. I answered the call. Jen. Oh, thank God. Jennifer's voice was frantic. I've been trying to reach you all night. Are you okay? Where are you? What happened? I'm fine. I'm at Alexander's place. He's been helping me. There was a pause. Alexander. As in your boss, Alexander? Alexander Ashford. Yes. Another pause. Emma, I need you to tell me the truth. Has something been going on between you two? No. I mean, not until yesterday. It's complicated, Jen. I'm coming over. You don't know where I am. I'll figure it out. Send me the address. I looked at Alexander, who shrugged. Your choice. But if she comes, she's going to have questions. She's my best friend. She deserves answers. An hour later, Jennifer was sitting in Alexander's living room, listening to the whole story, the investigation, the video, the escape, and Alexander's confession. When I finished, she sat back and blew out a long breath. Okay, that's a lot. I know. So your boss has been in love with you for years, investigates your fiancé, discovers he's a con artist, and stages a dramatic rescue at your wedding? That's the gist of it. Jennifer looked at Alexander, who'd given us privacy but was still within earshot in the kitchen. And you? What are your intentions here? Jen. I protested. No, it's a fair question. Alexander came into the living room and sat across from us. My intentions are to support Emma however she needs right now. If that means being her friend, I'm her friend. If that means giving her space, I'll give her space. If, eventually, she decides she wants to explore a relationship with me, I'll be honored. But this isn't about me swooping in to claim her. It's about her having the freedom to choose her own path. Jennifer studied him for a long moment. You really love her. I do. And you're not going to hurt her? Never intentionally. But I'm human. I'll make mistakes. The difference is, I'll own them and work to fix them. He looked at me. Emma deserves someone who sees her as an equal partner, not a prize to be won. Jennifer turned to me. So what are you going to do? I have no idea, I admitted. Yesterday I thought I had my whole life planned out. Today I don't even know where I'll be living next week. You'll be here, Alexander said, for as long as you need. I can't just move in with you. People will talk. Let them. His voice was firm. Emma, you're running from a con artist who targeted you. The media will speculate no matter what you do. At least here you're safe. You have privacy. You have space to figure things out. Jennifer nodded slowly. He's right. Going back to your apartment right now would be a nightmare. Reporters are probably camped outside already. This is insane, I muttered. My life has turned into a soap opera. Welcome to the fun, Alexander said dryly. Being associated with me means your privacy is pretty much non-existent. If you stay, you'll need to prepare for that. Over the next few days, I began to understand what he meant. Photographers followed us everywhere. Every move I made was documented and analyzed. The headlines evolved from salacious speculation to something more sympathetic once the fraud charges against Marcus became public. But the attention didn't stop. Alexander handled it with the ease of someone who dealt with media scrutiny his entire career. He hired a publicist for me, a fierce woman named Carol who issued carefully worded statements on my behalf. He arranged for my things to be moved from my apartment to his penthouse. He even managed to reschedule meetings so I could attend therapy sessions, something I desperately needed. You don't have to do all this, I told him one evening as we sat on his terrace, watching the sunset. I want to, but why? I'm not your responsibility. He turned to look at me, his blue eyes serious. Emma, do you know what the hardest part of the last 3 years has been? It wasn't watching you plan a wedding to someone else, though that hurt like hell. It was watching you diminish yourself. You're brilliant, one of the smartest people I know. But around Marcus, you made yourself smaller, less opinionated, less confident, like you thought you had to be someone else to be loved. I started to protest, then stopped. He was right. I had done that. I don't want you to be anyone other than exactly who you are, he continued. That's why I'm helping you. Because I want you to rediscover the Emma who impressed me so much in that first interview. The woman who told me my organizational system was inefficient and then proceeded to redesign my entire office workflow in her first week. I laughed, remembering. You looked like you wanted to fire me. I looked like I wanted to kiss you. But you were too professional, too focused, and I was too aware of the power dynamic to act on it. He reached over and took my hand. But now you're not just my assistant. You're Emma Carter, woman of mystery who walked away from her own wedding. You're making your own choices. And if one of those choices is to give me a chance, I'll spend every day making sure you never regret it. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. I love you. You're figuring out if you could love me back. Everything else is just noise. Over the following weeks, a routine emerged. I worked from Alexander's home office, handling some of his business, remotely, while I figured out what I wanted to do long term. We had dinner together every night, talking for hours about everything and nothing. He introduced me to his world, charity galas, board meetings, the complex ecosystem of running a billion-dollar company. And slowly, carefully, we began to explore what it meant to be more than friends. The first time he kissed me after that initial night, we were in his home theater, watching a movie neither of us were paying attention to. His arm was around me, and I turned my head to say something, and suddenly his lips were on mine, and the world fell away. I'm falling in love with you, I whispered against his mouth. I certainly hope so, he murmured back, because I'm already there. It wasn't like with Marcus. That had been performance, a carefully choreographed dance where I played the role of the perfect girlfriend. With Alexander, I could be myself. I could argue with him about business strategy. I could beat him at chess. I could wake up with messy hair and no makeup, and he looked at me like I was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. You know, people will say you're rebounding, Jennifer warned me one day over lunch. They'll say you went from Marcus straight into Alexander's arms without taking time to heal. Maybe I am rebounding, I said, but it feels different. It feels real. Just be careful. You've been through a lot. But careful had gotten me engaged to a con artist. Careful had nearly cost me everything. So instead of being careful, I decided to be brave. 3 months after my almost wedding, Alexander took me to the same church where I'd almost married Marcus. My parents had arranged for it to be empty, giving us privacy. Why are we here? I asked as we walked down the aisle together. Because I want to replace a bad memory with a good one. He stopped at the altar where I would have stood with Marcus, where I would have promised forever to a man who saw me as a transaction. Emma Carter, Alexander said, taking both my hands in his. I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. We both know you need more time, and I'm prepared to wait as long as it takes. But I am asking you to build a life with me, to be my partner in everything, to challenge me, support me, and occasionally remind me that I'm not always right. I laughed through sudden tears. I'm asking you to let me love you the way you deserve to be loved. Fully, completely, without reservation or hidden agendas. I'm asking you to trust that what we have is real, even though it started in chaos. And I'm promising you that I will spend every day making sure you know how extraordinary you are. Yes, I whispered. Yes to all of it. He pulled out a small box, not an engagement ring, but a delicate necklace with a single diamond pendant. A promise, he said, fastening it around my neck, that I'll never make you feel less than you are, that I'll never ask you to change, that I'll love you exactly as you are for as long as you'll have me. Standing in that church, in the place where I'd almost made the biggest mistake of my life, I realized that sometimes the worst moments lead us to the best ones. Sometimes you have to walk away from what you thought you wanted to discover what you actually need. And sometimes the person who saves you is someone who's been there all along, waiting for you to see him. I love you, I told Alexander, standing on tiptoe to kiss him. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Thank you for trusting me enough to take my hand that day. We stood there in the empty church, holding each other, and I knew that this moment, this man, this new beginning, was exactly where I was supposed to be. The wedding I'd planned had been perfect on paper. But this messy, complicated, unexpected love, this was real. And real was infinitely better than perfect. The charity gala was in full swing. I moved through the crowd in a midnight blue gown, comfortable in my role as Alexander's partner, both in life and in business. After much discussion, I transitioned from his executive assistant to the COO of Ashford Technologies, a role I'd earned through talent and hard work, not through our relationship. There you are. Alexander appeared at my elbow, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. I've been looking for you. I was talking to the mayor about the new Youth Technology Center. I think we can get city funding if we structure it right. See, this is why I love you. Most people come to these things to drink expensive champagne and make small talk. You're here solving problems. I took the champagne and clinked my glass against his. I learned from the best. Speaking of which, he set down his glass and reached into his jacket pocket. I have something for you. My heart started racing. We talked about marriage, about someday, but I hadn't expected. He pulled out a small velvet box. Emma Carter, you spent the last year proving that the best things in life are worth waiting for. You've built a career, found yourself, and somehow still decided you want to spend your life with me. I'm the luckiest man alive. He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, an emerald-cut diamond that caught the light and threw rainbows across the room. Will you marry me? For real this time. No drama, no secrets, just 2 people who love each other and want to build something beautiful together. I looked at the ring, then at Alexander, then at the life we'd built together. A year ago, I'd been standing in a church, about to marry the wrong man. Now I was standing in a ballroom, being proposed to by the right one. Yes, I said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, and the room erupted in applause. Apparently, we hadn't been as private as I'd thought. You planned this, I accused, laughing as he spun me into his arms. I may have mentioned it to a few people. Jennifer helped pick the ring. Your father gave me his blessing. Your mother has already started planning the wedding. Of course she has. He kissed me softly. Are you ready for round 2? Wedding planning, I mean. I promise this time will be different. I looked at the ring on my finger, at the man who'd saved me from myself, at the future stretching out before us. With you, I'm ready for anything. And I was, because sometimes the story doesn't end where you think it will. Sometimes it just begins.